Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I'm ready to do my full review on this bad boy. This is the Spyderco GB1, or the Gayle Bradley one, which is loaned to me by my buddy Blake from the Millie PM2 Para3 Club. I'll link the Millie Club down below. Blake doesn't want to be linked because he doesn't make knife content. But yeah, he's a really cool dude who I've met in there and become friends with, and I appreciate him loaning it to me. So I've been excited to check this out because I have the Spyderco GB2, the Gayle Bradley 2, which is the new, maybe enhanced version of the Gayle Bradley 1. They don't make the GB2 anymore, but they do seem to make the GB1 every now and then. It's not discontinued, but it's not always available. In fact, most of the time it's not. But I really like the GB2. You can see mine is wearing these sharp dress knives, micarta scales, and it also has a MXG gear pocket clip on it. I really like this setup and that knife. That knife ships with scales just like this. They're kind of the carbon fiber over G10, which is not my favorite, but some people like it, whatever. And this actually has a Lynch clip on it. So you can see Lynch and MXG. Here's a good comparison for people who seem to want to know the difference a lot of the time. Very similar. The reason why I have this MXG black one is because at the time when I bought this clip, I couldn't find a black Lynch clip in stock anywhere. Now I kind of find I'm liking MXG a lot lately. Lynch makes amazing clips as well, but some of the different styles from MXG I'm liking. Anyway, I've wanted to check out one of these since the very first time that I got a GB2. That's actually my second GB2. And so I was excited when Blake said he was willing to loan this to me for me to have a look at, because there are quite a few differences between the two of them. And I have heard that some people prefer this one. So I was curious as to why and what those differences are that could lend someone to want the previous version of a knife over the newer version, if you will. So when you break it down to differences, you get more blade length on the GB2. Not a ton, but a little bit. A little bit of a different blade profile, and then the handle profile is very different. So the GB1, you get kind of a forward choil. The GB2, you do not. And then, yeah, the ergos themselves are different. This one, the GB1, kind of bulges out toward the back a little bit more of a hump in it. And they're just ergonomically quite different. They feel like very different knives in hand. The blade stock thickness looks about the same to me. It might be a hair thicker on the GB1. Switch sides. I think they're the same. They're both featuring a hollow grind. They're both really good cutters. We'll talk about that. Both made in Taichung, Taiwan. And so I kind of went into this wanting to see if I felt like I would end up wanting to replace my GB2 with a GB1, or if I at least felt like I needed one. And I think for me personally, I prefer the GB2 just a little bit, but I really like this as well. So this knife feels a little bit heavier and a little bit more robust, but it has a smaller blade. So it kind of feels a little bit more tool-like, if you will, which is crazy because the GB2 already feels like one of my most tool-like knives. The way that this knife functions and fits in my hand, it feels like a tool, and I've said that before. But this one feels even more tool-like, and I think just the way that it indexes in hand, the way that you've got this blade to handle ratio, the way that these liners are much thicker on here. It's really robust liners. It's got a little more heft to it in the handle, and the blade feels lighter, so it feels like a very handle-focused knife. It's different, and it's kind of cool, so I dig it, but I think at the end of the day, like if I'm picking which one I'd rather have, it is the GB2. So let's go through this knife, and first we'll talk materials, and then we'll talk kind of my typical talking points. Blade steel on this one, just like the GB2, is going to be CPM M4. I love M4 as a blade steel. It's one of my favorites. It's an excellent blade steel, phenomenal edge retention. It's balanced well for what I like out of steels. Handle scales, like I already said, are going to be carbon fiber on top of G10. Spyderco does that, especially from Taichung, fairly often, or at least they used to. Not really my favorite. I'd rather either have just G10 or just carbon fiber. I'm not a big fan of putting carbon fiber on top of G10. It also has this weird kind of like snake skin type sensation where it's not gritty grippy, but it's got texture of like the weave of the carbon itself. I don't hate it. It feels okay, but I don't know. It's just a constant reminder in my hand that it's not real carbon and it's not G10. Like, I'd rather have one or the other. But you can always just go micarta. That's what I did on this one. So that's our handle scale material. And then of course we do have these thick liners, like I already mentioned. There's stainless steel liners. Internally there's quite a bit of milling, or there's some drilled out sections. Not an insane amount, but it's been done. So there's some weight reduction happening in there. And then we've just got a couple of barrel spacers and a lanyard tube back there. Come on, focus. This one, like I said, is wearing a Lynch deep carry clip. And as you've seen on mine, I think a deep carry clip is the way to go on pretty much every Spyderco. So construction-wise, this one is very, very similar to the two. The biggest difference, I think, other than like shaping changes, but the biggest difference in materials is really going to be the thickness of the liners. That's what seems to set them apart the most in their construction. And then the other thing is this handle shape. So ergonomically, I quite like this. This forward choil feels really comfortable to me. It feels really solid because it's not a gap between the scales that you're putting your hand on. The tang of the blade, is in there. And it's not jimped, which on so many Spydercos it is, like the PM2, it's a jimped forward choil. Para3, same thing. Shaman, they're all jimped in here, and this one's not, it's just smooth. You do have a little bit of jimping up here on the thumb ramp of the blade, and so it feels nice and locked in this grip. My fingers all follow very naturally and ergonomically behind. This swell back here fits in my palm well. It's a very comfortable knife in a saber grip. That feels like it's designed to go in a saber grip, and it does it well. Hammer grip is also pretty comfortable. Feels like I could really get some work done. It does put me up pretty close to that edge, so if I was feather sticking or something, I could see that working well. So yeah, hammer grip, saber grip are both good. Reverse, or draw cut, I should say, feels pretty comfortable. That's usable. Nothing is poking or prodding me in a way that's unacceptable. Feels pretty good. Reverse grip feels pretty good. I feel like I want to choke back to here and get out of the choil when I do that. But it's comfortable. Nice comfortable spot for me to put my thumb, and it's locked in pretty well. Reverse draw, also comfortable. That works. I should say as well, you don't have to use the forward choil on here. This knife is actually still quite comfortable if I'm not using the forward choil. Just feels like I'm a little bit far away from the blade at that point, but if I needed an extra inch of reach for some reason, then maybe I could do that. But yeah, nice comfortable handle in pretty much any orientation that I put it in, so I like it in that way. Let's talk action. So both this and the GB2 run on washers, and they're a hole for deployment. I find either one can be Spidey flicked well. Neither one of them are drop shutty. This one feels, actually, let me see. I've got it sitting here. I might as well compare. Yeah, neither of them are drop shutty. They feel about the same in that way. So neither one is going to be like a fidget king action. They both make a lot of sense to thumb roll out. And slow rolling them feels very smooth, glassy. If you love CRKs, maybe you'll like that. It definitely works in that way, but it can also be Spidey flicked reliably, and that's the way I like to open knives. So you can Spidey flick it, you can slow roll it, you can, you can thumb flick it. That works as well. So there's multiple kind of deployments with the hole, and access to the hole is fine. Some of the Spyderco knives where they block part of the hole, it really feels like you can't get in there. This one, they have blocked a little bit of the hole, but you can still get enough access to reliably Spidey flick it or thumb flick it. So action is fine. Not a fidget king, not trying to be very tool-like, right? So yeah, that's ergos in action. Let's talk cutting now. So this one, the hollow grind on here feels to me about the same thickness behind the edge as the GB2. The GB2 might be a hair thinner if my finger calipers are right. It's real close. Yeah, I guess the GB2 feels a tiny bit thinner to me. But in terms of the cutting profile, one of the reasons why I speak so highly of the GB2 is because this blade just performs really, really well. I love using this knife for actual cutting. It's really effective at it. And so on this one, I think you get a very similar level of performance and kind of feel when cutting. It's a little bit less length, but it's still a good hollow grind in an excellent steel. It's got a very usable, workable tip, although this one, when it was sharpened, seems to be a little bit kind of rounded off compared to how they should look. But yeah, it's a very good blade. I think what it actually comes down to for me, like, again, the differences between these two is going to be more so like feeling in the hand than cutting performance, because they're both just really good cutters. I haven't done much cutting with this because it's a loaner, but I have side by side, like put it through a little bit of cardboard with this and kind of felt, and they both feel virtually identical to me in terms of how they'll actually slice. Both of them have good workable tips on them. The profile makes sense to me. And so really this one I think just fits in my hand a little bit more intuitively. Maybe this feels more familiar. Maybe I just like it better. I don't know. The GB2 to me feels better. But this still feels really, really good. And so, I don't know. I can see why some people prefer it. It feels a little more robust. The thicker liners, the kind of weight of it, it feels a little bit more hefty in hand. And maybe to you, you really wish the GB2 had a forward finger choil. Well, the GB1 does. And it works quite well, and it feels comfortable. This handle also feels a little bit wider. So maybe if I had bigger hands, I might find that this one feels better, because then maybe this feels a little too narrow in hand. But this one doesn't feel too narrow in hand for me. So yeah, I think it makes sense that some people prefer this one, but I just prefer the two. I prefer the one that came out after that I would consider has some improvements. I like that it's a little thinner, I like that it feels a little lighter. I like the blade to handle ratio a little bit better. You just get more blade for the size of the handle here. And yeah, this hasn't replaced the GB2 for me, but it's very good. So I guess that'll kind of be my full review. Is there anything that I didn't talk about? I talked ergos, cutting. Oh, I didn't talk about carry. I should probably mention that, shouldn't I? Tagging it on here at the end. This knife carries really, really similarly to the GB2. You'll notice it has a little bit more of a distinct hump here than here. In pocket, I didn't notice that. The only thing that I noticed difference-wise was that it feels a little bit thicker and kind of a little bit heavier. Not a ton heavier, but a little bit. And it's, yeah, it just feels a little bit more weighty than the GB2 does, and a little bit thicker. But with this deep carry clip on it, carries quite well. I love the way Lynch or MXG deep carry clips tend to carry on Spydercos. It's just intuitive for me to get out of the pocket. It's good retention. And yeah, this as like a tool knife, it's not trying to be ultra lightweight. It's not trying to be anything that it isn't. For the tool that it is, it carries quite well. So let's end there. It carries well. That'll be my full review on the GB1. So thank you again to Blake. I will link to the Millie Club because I love the Millie Club, and that's where I got to know Blake. So that will be linked down below, and I'll see all of you on the next one. Thanks, guys.